To our December meeting, and we'll call for apologies.
Thank you, Alan and Mark Harris. And where?
Make someone move those apologies, please.
We'll move.
Okay, seconder, please. Stu. Trying to go. One.
Yeah.
All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried, thank you. There's no public forum. I'd just like members. Pardon? No, it's just no one speaking. So you're quite welcome to stay and listen to everybody. We'll be finished by then. I'd just like members and people attending to stand at the death of Maniototo of the Borough. Thank you. Thank you very much. Someone move getting to the previous meeting. It's a true and correct record, please.
I'll do that.
Seconder. Vicky, all those in favour? Aye. Against?
We're going to be busy, Pete. We're going to be busy.
Board members, anything they feel they have an interest in, please declare it. Right. Dylan. Ryan.
Kia ora, how are we?
These two were late chat.
Yep, just got here. So look, this paper is hopefully relatively straightforward. This is just confirming the discussions we had in a workshop last time around the level of grants that will be available through the Community Grant Fund and also the Promotion and Event Grant Fund. This recommendation goes through to Council that is then carried through in the LTP budgeting process. So the numbers in the paper, recommended levels are 6,700 for your community grant and 5,000 for your promotion and event grant. Open to any questions.
So we talked about last time about the amounts not changing.
Yeah.
And they haven't changed?
No. Well, the community one has, because it's come down due to the museum grant now coming from council rather than the community board. So it's come down by the same amount that is now coming from council. The promotions and events grant hasn't changed based on there doesn't appear to be the demand for that growth.
Yep, so yeah, so the Naseby one will come directly from council.
Correct.
Any other questions? No. You're remarkably quiet.
No, that's fine. I was just thinking of that grant we applied for the school turf.
Yep.
Through the grants process has been picked up by council, is it not?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a separate one to this one, Stu.
Yeah, but it won't have any effect on our grants, so will it?
No.
That's it. You'll see that next week. New board, put it in the consultation statements.
Yeah. That's right. I'll move recommendation. As you can see.
Someone, Stu, you move that recommendation, please.
Yep.
Seconder. Vicky.
Yep.
All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan.
Enjoy the day. Cheers.
You too. Right. Official delegations for the community boards. Saskia, how are you today?
Well, thank you.
Look rushed.
I was driving according to the speed limit.
As you should.
Very good thing to do around this mini tow.
Thank you, members. This here, I think, should be a fairly straightforward paper as well. Wayne sends his apologies. So you have seen all of this before. This has come as a consequence of the distributisation conversation that does now require a change to community board delegations. So what you see in front of you is Wayne's talked with all the community boards and also a workshop with council, and have come to collated all the feedback and come to the revised delegation. So really today, if there's anything that doesn't reflect your feedback, anything that you would want us to raise when we present this next week. But my memory of the board meeting was that the board was fairly comfortable with it, open to questions and debate.
There's nothing been changed, has it?
There was a few things changed from when you saw it in terms of we had power to act and power to advise, but that we still got the power to act at the end, but we've moved some things around on advice, particularly from the Cromwell Community Board, and then we added things like the chairs having the ability to speak. But in terms of any changes for this board, nothing material that isn't consistent with your conversation.
Yeah. So just you go back to the grants and donations. So we've still got the grants.
Yeah.
And the
Power to Act, that's number one
Yeah.
on the list this year. The Power to Act is to make grants and donations, which will not be, unless of course it's outside of your grants budget, would not be by recommendation to council. You have that ability. It's been retained for this board to decide that in your meeting.
Yep. Oh, I see Duncan Road coming in next year.
What?
How to? And roads.
There is a Duncan Road. I think they really want to have a student in the road.
I don't know about that.
It's pretty straightforward though, isn't it? Should work that right.
Yeah. The I suppose actually of interest to this board is the new 8 is advise on the use of endowment land within their ward. Of course, you do have endowment land within this ward that is leased out. So what that essentially is protecting the board's right in relation to that. So that means that the board, the council would expect if we down the track were to do anything different with that land, that the NCB would be making the conversation first would be with NCB or to council.
Yeah.
That's farms. Yeah.
There's a one farm, it's the Naysbeen Dam, that's Naysbeen Dam land's different again, isn't it?
Yes, I need help. Yeah. Thanks, Janice.
Yes, so the film land is the land that Scott leases. The other farms I don't believe are endowment. It's the John Scott land.
What about Durban one?
It's perpetual. It's tied up in perpetual lease. So for the benefit of the Maniototo Park. Don't believe that's endowment. But we can have a look for you and just
Because I guess the question leaves if there's interest in other parties, it's still council owned communal land, just being a perpetual lease.
Yeah. Which means we don't, that lease can pass on to another party.
Yeah.
It still gets reviewed and all the rest of it, but we don't have say on that other party for that given lease.
No, but what I'm saying that in time, if other entities come and offer different opportunities, it's got to be an act of parliament to change it, correct? Which was the same. It was the same debate that Tim got in trouble with in Cromwell, where if you had endowment land, if they wish to sell endowment land, you could have to go to an act of parliament, you have a minister sign.
It's true. Engaging down like that and no agreements.
That's not specific. Yeah, I'm not sure about the status on that.
Well, I don't know, because at the end of the day, obviously the discussion around solar farms, it is right next door to a solar farm, of which it is council owned, community board owned asset, which is a perpetual lease of perpetuity to a share. So I'm saying, what happens if a power company, let's say are about, want to say we want to go here,
Yeah.
who has the right as the owner, and do council have a right to say what's ours, or the lease ties it up with it's theirs?
Would dictate the purpose for the land, I would think. So that's a different purpose.
Oh, yeah, I'm just saying because
Legal
Yeah.
opinion.
it's been well and truly documented, that's been signed up at early days former board members. But how does that affect us going forward if we have land use change and all those things? Because ultimately, if we want a net contributor to rates and someone comes on and then, you know, as a consentable issue. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
It's just,
I guess for the purpose of today, that is something that was in the draft that you saw last time. So that has come from the Cromwell board. They were really keen that that was quite visible within the delegations. And I know that is of interest to this community board heading down. So that is, it has its own protection as well.
Yeah.
We've also added it into the delegations.
Yeah. it's good. Well, so you can only move it there.
Yes, one of you can move it, one can second it, please. Everyone happy, Becky?
Yeah.
Maybe.
I'll second it.
Second is Stu Duncan, all those in favour? Aye.
We're getting as much done without those other two anyway. The question how much they actually do.
Yeah.
They're on holiday together, believe it? They're doing a trip with Johnny Mahon, starting at Nelson and coming down through Molesworth Station and right through the middle of all the stations in New Zealand, coming out in Merrimack. So, yeah, they're on holiday together.
Holding hands.
Yeah.
Rightio. Thank you, Sas. Yep. Janice. Lee.
Mind the cable, health and safety. Good afternoon.
You think we did any facility would have cable period and
Indeed. Right, I'll kick it off then. Thank you for your time this afternoon. Really just to give some context to this report is following on through the different conversations that Council's been having in relation to the LTP. And so when we've been having these conversations about levels of service, the work that we're doing as council, as you can imagine, the costs just keep on escalating, and often the costs are escalating just to keep the level of service to the norm, basically. Through those conversations with council and through different workshops, council had asked for staff to look at where there are potential savings. And so through this process, we looked at with halls, was one of those conversations. And so the report that you have today is part of that conversation to say, well, given the numbers of halls, the escalated costs, operational costs and capital expenditure costs, particularly in relation to earthquake strengthening, the use of the buildings, is there a conversation that we want to have with our community to say that, hey, when these buildings were originally established back in the First and Second World War, how we were all travelling and using the buildings is arguably considerably different to how we have today. And so with Janice, myself and Gareth, who unfortunately can't be here today, we said, well, hey, let's have this conversation then. These are the facts and figures for what we have in relation to how these halls are being utilised. And we've gone through with each of the community boards and had the same conversation. My understanding is that sometimes halls can be used unofficially because a certain person knows somebody else or they know where the key's held, etc., etc. And so there's part of the conversation would be in having the consultation is, are these halls used more than we actually recognise? But unfortunately, from what we can see, they appear to be often underutilised, and certainly the revenue that comes in versus the rating contribution seems to outweigh that. And so that's the conversation for today. And so the halls that you have with Janice being the expert in this field, but for us as staff, is looking at, well, what are the council-owned buildings? What is the legal status of those buildings? What is the bookings? What's the revenue? Which ones need earthquake strengthening? To give you, from a staff's point of view, the recommendations of, particularly when we look at C in the recommendations, is for the buildings that we're proposing to have a conversation in the draft, in the consultation documentation for the LTP, basically. So we're not saying to get rid of them full stop, and that's going to happen today. It's for us to have the conversation with the community about, do we want to get rid of them? And if so, there's a process that we would need to follow following that in relation to some of the buildings. And if we were to divest them, it wouldn't, any money that we would get wouldn't come back to council because of the status of the land, and it may be that it goes back to Crown and it's offered to Naitahi from that perspective. So that's part of that conversation.
So here, you had a list of divesting ones.
Yes.
So when you're talking about divesting, you're talking about putting them out there for the public to say, yes, we'd like to see it sold, yes, we'd like not to see it sold.
Divesting is basically giving it a value to the community to fund raise its ownership.
So that is part of the conversation. So for some of the buildings cut in at any point too, John, so I get this wrong, is the conversation to say, do we want to get rid of them based on this information of the use of the buildings, the cost, because of the, you equally, like all the other community boards and council, will be concerned about the rating increases for your community. And so this is just one element that you're having the conversation with your community to say, these buildings are costing X amount in your rates each year and over the duration of the LTP. Do you want to keep them all? If so, this is how much it's going to cost you because of these reasons. If you don't want to keep them, there's an opportunity for us to divest them. If we divest them, what does that look like? And that can often be, there are parts of our community that when we have this conversation to say, we're looking to get rid of, for argument's sake, Ramfurley Hall, or heck, there's people in the community that would want to have that building and they'd want to run it as a trust, for argument's sake. And we've got examples of that happening across the district. So that would be part of the conversation.
Yep.
What are you looking at me?
I feel there's a question.
I feel there's a question coming too, Steve. So if we recommend this, it'll go out to the public and say, this is what we're looking at doing. And this is our options.
The long-term plan.
Our long-term plan, saying that this is not what we are going to do straight away. This is what we want. This is what we recommend and we can do. Simple.
So you've missed a step there. So the purpose of this report is for you to consider it and you to make a recommendation to council.
Yes.
Council will then consider a report and they will take into consideration what staff have said and what the community boards have said. Then they will make a decision as to what may or may not go into that consultation and for further discussion with community. And there's more than one way of divesting. It doesn't necessarily mean to say that a community group have to pick up the cost of the hall.
Yes. And to be crystal clear in relation to the recommendations to council, so following your recommendations today, we'll take those and put those into the report, the late report that we've got going to council that we need to complete by tomorrow morning for the council meeting for next Wednesday.
Yep.
The recommendations that you're seeing with regards to your community will be what we will put in the report. So these ones, you may change the recommendations to what you feel you want to recommend to council, and we will reflect those as part of the report that goes to council. What our recommendations as staff are that will go to council, or what you're reading there. For argument's sake, if you were to say, we agree with what you're saying, but we want Ramfurley Hall to go from recommendation C to B, we would reflect that in the conversation with council. Well, our recommendation would be that Ramfurley Hall remains to be considered for divestment.
I might as well start at the top one, which is,
Well, we never discussed before you had that, can not?
I've got the whole book here. I'm just going, oh, yeah, well, okay.
I mean,
Knew you had a question.
and I guess to me, there's some that should go from C to B.
Yeah.
And a humorous conversation we had at a Christmas party. It's ironic that Omakau get a brand new facility, Maniototo Stadium gets upgraded by $7 million. Cromwell gets $40 million, and we're talking about divesting. And if you're taking the growth aspect, if you do have the business, be there be a solar farm or anything coming in, our actual community has got 250 people come in to work on a solar farm. It's 25% growth in our town. So in the time that we are growing, we're divesting our community, well, divesting some, maybe. Now, if we get this wrong, which hall should be, because the first thing I'd say, and I was with Tamer at the week at the school breakup, and it was a pretty cool breakup, this last one, and it was at the town hall. So I just think everyone has to have a town hall, but that's pretty old say. Maybe, yeah. And Patara, Naseby, for example, it's a historic building. The town of the Maniototo was in Naseby in the 1860s and 1880s. But if I just see a letter on the wall at home about divesting the railway goods sheds, in those days in the 1980s, the minister himself wrote to my father, who tried to keep the schools open and keep the railways open, to say that when any expenditure was due, then maybe they divest then. And of course, in your long-term plan, you've got 2029, 5 or 6 years with some of that costing. The problem I have, and it's been brought up, I think, by some of my other members in council, is we're budgeting for something on the earthquake and we're not sure when the time comes. So we put it in the long-term budget, sure, and I just see the cost of everything, just take the weather because it's the closest one to home, is $440,000. If we take all the Patarawa Hall, we're made basically, as due, obviously demolishing is an option. But if you take all these off the Naseby Hall, it's the earthquake and cost $1 million. Is it a true cost?
It could be more.
And the longer you defer the costing, the more these figures that you've got in here are inflated figures to match the year that they're in. They are high level figures, but they're the best we've got to go on at the moment. I shouldn't imagine it will be reaching this year.
No. So the point to that, if then we divest these back to the community, and one classic example would be the Fenton Library. There's a nearly commercial volunteer basis building. Then what are the chances of the council paying? You can't go into there because you're not meeting the earthquake standard. So do you become the gamekeeper and the poacher at the same time? Because as soon as the Fenton Library is used, and they go, oh, you've come up for your insurance, or we come up there, your earthquake rating is exactly what you've got here, unless they go get an independent earthquake rating because it's not a council building, and you go, you can't use it, you divested it, and the community raise money. When do we become, where is that tipping point, I guess?
So I guess that tipping point is in relation to when that building is due to be earthquake strengthened under the law. And so, you know, if you were to divest that building, using it as an example, and they didn't do the earthquake strengthening as a trust, for argument's sake, or as the community own that, then 2052, which is what the current legislation is the timeframe for that. If they hadn't done the earthquake strengthening, then you become gatekeeper.
So 2052, so that's
legislation.
That's 30 years from now.
Yep.
So the argument of that is, why aren't we divesting them then?
This, I guess that's the conversation that we're having at the moment, is to say, well, because this is a council-owned building, what we're looking at is to say, we believe with the legislation, if people are going in there today, we're making a plan to make sure that it is earthquake strengthened to the new building standard within the current legislation, rather than leaving everything till the 11th hour, when, to Janice's point, the costs are going to escalate. The balance that we're unsure about is that the government, you know, with the current legislation, they've already indicated an extension of 4 years. They're meant to ratify that.
To 2054.
Well, no, so that's the current legislation. So they're looking to extend by 4 years, which they were going to ratify by this month, but we haven't heard anything about that. And then they have said that they are going to look at the legislation with regard to earthquake strengthening and the methodology starting sort of mid next year, basically. So that will take a period of time to do that for me.
And the challenge I have, and I've brought this up to some of my other councillors, is if that's the information we get in the middle of the year, why are we pulling the trigger early and causing angst in our community? Because one more year out of the year 2054 is going to make not much difference to our long-term plan, because we're very good, well, we have been in the past 30 years, of kicking the can down the road. And this one for community facilities is one that could be kicked down the road, and the community gets what it was. Now, I got some of them I would divest, some I would knock over, but there is a lot in the Maniototo. I get that in this percentage, but they're also, if the growth that's happening in Central Otago, the growth in Cromwell is the same as the population of Ranfurly every year. Now, the net migration, when I first started this table, the net migration was always from the west to the east. And so what I guess I'm saying is, in 25 years' time, well, what have we now, 25 years' time, and the laws may change next year, we're pulling the trigger on something that's really contentious, merely divesting it, and it may be a good outcome for the community if we divest the Fenton Library to the radio station, and they get another 30 years. Well, who knows what's happening in 30 years? They may say, we'll demolish the building and we'll shift into another building around because there's no businesses left. So that's just where I sit on it, because a lot of these things, and I'll go back to the Wedderburn Hall, it's 100 years ago this July that the community raised the money, borrowed the money, built the hall. And then they had the tennis clubs with the funk, the sports teams are, and all that stuff.
I think we're getting a wee bit off subject.
Yeah, but it's important for the community, because once we start to get that wrong,
Yeah,
it'll
we're
be
not
very
going
hard to
to
get
get
back
anything
on.
wrong. All we're going to do is,
As well. It's also the operational costs of halls that are not being used well. We've got halls that get used twice a year. Waipiata is a good example of that. And you look at the operational costs for that going forward, 325,000. The operational cost for that hall last year was 35,000. So it's not just the impact of earthquake strengthening that we're looking at here. It's also the usage, the rates input.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and then if you look at your map, your location map halls, we've got a lot of halls in the Maniototo. We've got a lot of private facilities in the Maniototo. And we're also going to have a lot of contingency buildings. Now, contingency buildings are buildings that aren't ours at the moment, but they're on reserved land. And when those clubs or entities fold, which we see the writing on the wall, they too will come back to council. It's facing that with the Millis Black Bowling Club and the squash court down there. Maniototo will get a fair share of that when that's happening, because the clubs aren't very well supported in the wee tiny towns. You've got Ranfurly Bowling Club, but then you've got Waipiata, Pennyroa, blah, blah.
And my concern is it's districtised, isn't it? It is districtised halls. But yet we're having 700 or 800 people grow a year in Cromwell. So across the district, we've got growth.
you've got growth trouble.
But if you follow the planning, when we do our spatial plan, and I would argue that until we get our spatial plan, we shouldn't be pulling the trigger on this until we have a spatial plan.
But we're not pulling the trigger, we're just putting a recommendation out. This is what the council's looking at, aren't we? And none of this is set.
Yeah, but it goes to council soon.
It goes to council next Wednesday.
Yeah.
But this recommendation is not set in stone, is it?
Correct. So the recommendation is for you to have the conversation with your community.
Yeah.
And so if you were to accept everything that we put forward to you today, for argument's sake, is that gets included into the consultation document that Saskia's team will be drafting to get that all sorted. We have to have that consultation document by 10th of January, Sas. So we have to have that done then. That would then go out to the community. That is the point, Stu, to all of your points that are absolutely valid, is for the community then to make a submission as to why they believe that this hall should not be divested. This one we agree should be divested. That's the information that we need to have this conversation.
Yep.
And it's all valid points that you're making. Absolutely.
And
We're
that's,
saying have this conversation. The community needs to come out and use their voice in this conversation.
yeah, I totally get that, but I just think that the whole paper shouldn't be having that conversation until all the spatial plans are done. And we know the law on earthquaking. That's my biggest concern, because it's a long-term process we're going through in Central.
Yeah.
It's about growth, and how much growth here, a valid point. We may not have them, we're not using our facilities. But at the same token, you talk about cost of running a building, we're going to put a $45 million hall in Cromwell. We're not really sure exactly the cost of running that as well.
And you know, when next Wednesday, when you have a number of things put in front of you as council, there is going to be a number of considerations that you're going to need to make a decision on in that consultation document. This is what one of the conversations.
Right, can I recommend that the Ranfurly Town Hall goes back into the B? I think that's vitally important, because
Why is that one? What do you want to do?
the Ranfurly Town Hall, this one over here,
Yeah.
goes back into a recommendation that is retained in the budget for long-term plan. So it goes with the stadium, the arts centre and the railway station. Stays in. That would be one. It just goes up, back up, instead of being looked and being considered for to divest it into the community. It stays as a council asset.
But if we leave it in there, it stays there. And if the community say don't want it, we can take it out of that list and put it into B, can't we?
So if if you were to keep it in C at the moment, and it forms part of the consultation, the community come out and say, you know, no, we don't care about Ranfurly Hall, then we will look to divest that. Once it comes back through to council, then for the LTP of going, yeah, we want to look at divesting that, we will follow that process. On the reverse of that, through the consultation, the community says, heck no, we want to retain that. The reverse would happen is that will come through to council, and council will have a decision to make next year to go, okay, we want to retain Ranfurly. We've listened to our community. We want to.
So what if you have 4 recommendations from the public and you have a community board sitting there doing discussion to the recommendation on the submission? How much weight does submission have over the council?
So we're just going to wait until we get those submissions, listen to your comments, listen to the community's comments, and that will be a decision of council as to what finally happens. This is where you as the community board need to link in with your community to say, hey, when this LTP consultation document comes out, you really need to have a conversation. You need to get your voice in.
And equally, B can go down to C.
Correct. Correct. It could do, but in the consultation document, C is what would go into that.
Yeah. And I know the channel have got a lot to say about this, but the issue now, of course, so we've actually now got people submitting on the solar farm. They're submitting on 2 major issues at the tightest time that they can do that over a Christmas period.
Yeah.
Now, that's the problem I've got. We're actually right in the corner area.
Of the consultation for this
As later in the year.
February, March.
Mid-March, mid-April.
Yeah. So I think there's a separation there that's needed for that.
So there's a fair bit of time to get out there to the community and say, have a look at this. Submit. If you don't submit, don't vote.
And when I talked to Janice in relation to the conversations with all the community boards, once we've got this through with council, then the team would then go and link in with those parts of the community that we know that have that interest to make them aware of what the process is and what they need to do from that point of view. Because what we don't want is a surprise from that, right? We want people to be aware, be informed with it. We have really good submissions that come into the conversation.
So therefore, what we should be looking for in our process is to increase our grants if we divest.
There's probably another discussion for another day, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but our grants are set and all our applications are in our grants process. So if we're divested, there's no reason why people can't come to say, well, we want to put.
Yeah, well, that would go into submission.
For sure, through the chair, what I would say to that is that there's 2 parts to that conversation. That's one part of the conversation. The reverse might be that we're crystal clear that should we divest, that there will be no grants available. That's a separate conversation.
Who makes that? Us.
Council makes that decision.
Yep. You'll be right, Stu. Becky, been very quiet. Have you got any comments, any thoughts?
When you put it out to the community for discussion, like they get all the information, do they get to see these graphs and see what it costs and see, like I think that's important, isn't it? Like, to have all that information, because when they see it, like the numbers just don't add up in that sense either.
For sure, which is why I think Saskia, I'm sure we'll just get Saskia to comment in relation to that. But I think that's also part of the conversations that Janice in particular and but the rest of the team with the different communities is important that we as staff will certainly be having those conversations. And Stas, I don't know if you can comment about the consultation.
So currently our consultation document pending council direction on Wednesday is the last campaign items. So I need to work really closely with Dylan's team on how we make sure that the key stuff is the boss. So absolutely, media information needs to be in there, whether it forms part of the consultation document or we have it as one of our supporting documents. We'll just need to think about how the community would best engage with that, because it potentially might be information overload, this consultation document. So, but absolutely, that information will be available. I just think the best form for it.
And once we've got that, when we're linking in with the individual parts of the community, we can direct them to that part. If they're not interested in the other 10 items, this is when you find this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the consultation, will we have a drop in centre here for the community?
We haven't got that consultation here yet, but absolutely there'll be activities within
So it'd be March, so we'll have a regular show where we can have the council team and that discussion could be had.
There you go. Good idea, Stu.
Yeah.
With the ideas.
No.
So Becky, looking at that list,
Mhm.
just excuse me, Stu, for a minute, is there anything on that list that you think would stay? You know, Stu,
Sure. Huge. Yeah. Like I think Naseby is going to be a hot topic as well, like especially when you've got, you know, that. Yeah. Naseby and Renfrew Hall would be the two that I'd be like, you know, I think they get used a lot. And you know, like community wise, they're quite, whereas Waipiata and Peteraa, well, you know, it's a hard one, isn't it? But I think if you're open and honest to the community and pretty, you know, I don't know.
if you can show them the usage of each hall, which you can, and you can show them what it costs to run and what you get back, blah, blah, blah. To me, the only ones I see here that you could take from C to B would be the likes of the Wallace Memorial Rooms over here. Very well used place. Possibly.
Is it?
There we get the blanket used. No,
Doesn't. Okay.
so things like that. That's maybe one. And
I think people are in the hospital now.
are they? Well, they could well be there. But yeah.
But what does it get charged out as? Like, is that something that needs to be looked at for what we've got? You know?
Yes, it's
And
correct.
it's the same with the Centennial Milk Bar. Like, I know there's businesses in there, like, you know, is that relevant to where we are today in the sense of what are these people, like the physio and that?
So she gets charged a commercial rate for the Wallace Memorial. And we've just reviewed fees and charges with council yesterday, so that will go up another 10%. The value of, I guess, that little building is it's a small meeting room, and it's got 2 small meeting rooms, and it's got the rental fee, but be right small.
So I see you got the Naseby General Store on this on C. Is that because it's leased out to?
Yes, it is leased out to a business that's running it well, and as part of their lease conditions, they have to provide mail service and or pickup point and grocery items.
So if we divest that, where are they left? Do they still have a lease? Or?
Well, they'd still have a lease because you can't just chop the lease off. But someone else could step in and buy it. They might want to buy it. They're in a position to. But it means that there's no guarantee of what happens in that building once that lease goes.
We sit at council on the social context. People are saying, how do we invest in property or infrastructure or other ways to subsidise rates? And here we are looking at commercial operations, and the Wallace Memorial Hall's used Centennial Milk Bar. This community board, way earlier on, put a lot of its money to build that facility so it wasn't a sheriff's quarters kitchen. Not there's anything wrong with the sheriff's quarters kitchen. And here we are going, well, we're going to try to save money in the fastest growth period we've ever had in Central Otago's history. The gold
You're off track there.
No, I'm not.
Because well, yeah, I think
it's not, because if we went to build these facilities, look what the difference in Cromwell, what's happened.
Yeah, but you're talking about growth in Cromwell.
No, we're talking about Central Otago. This is districtised.
Yeah,
This is districtised costing.
I understand exactly what you're saying, but the growth is in Cromwell and Alexandra.
Yeah, but
the percentage of the growth isn't here.
But the statistical stuff, when we started council looking at the migration from west to east. So in other words, Omakau is once a gold mine, we're looking at 100-year facility buildings and taking a couple of weeks, months to make a decision on them on a districtised basis. We're districtised now. So this cost is met by Cromwell residents and Alexandra residents as well. So I don't think it just falls on us now. But that's actually the benefit of districtisation, is these things can be funded. And if we do have land sales and up there to offset property or a joint venture, and it could well be these have an opportunity for this. And I just don't think we should be divesting, and it's because they were going to come up once. There's no strategy to bring some on in 2010 and da. And if we turn around and divest them, there will be like a race to the bottom, of which this community will get none of the funds if they're divested back to the Crown. So there's no financial benefit to us and a cash flow business where we can take this building and sell it and build something else. Mm-hmm. It's districtised, so that cost is met by the district, which is fine. That's just what's happened in that situation. And I just think that, like, so you start looking at Bradford Service Centre, this is this building. Yeah, if it's real earthquake, there's plenty of buildings to go to, that's fine. I tick that one off. Centennial Milk Bar, the Lions, the community raised hundreds of thousands of dollars to get that to a point where it is not a museum now, because we're taking out the museum strategy, because it's not a museum, so it's taken its officiating away, which makes it just an old building in Ranford. And I just don't think we're giving ourselves enough time. And the community will probably come back and say, you know, I can understand why we had a Wedderburn, Paddy-Rail, I can understand that. Memorial Halls and the Fenton Library, well, that could be divested into the Radio Charitable Trust because it's a very good run group and you get funding. There's some there. But what really gets me is we're making decisions on a process where we don't know the earthquake proofing and what time frame it is. We don't know the earthquake proofing and we don't know when that is. That's a major thing. And at the end of the day, you sit back, and we joked about it at a Christmas party the other day, everyone has to get new facilities and we're divesting them in the community and not getting the funding. And it doesn't sit nice with me because once you start that process, all that basically disappears.
I guess just to respond to part of that is, I guess the financial benefit that you would be getting in relation to this is that you're not having those operational costs for
Over the district.
Over the district. But absolutely. Well, as a whole district, you haven't got those costs from an operational point of view. With regards to earthquake strengthening, you know, we know the time frame of that today, and as a council, made the decision of when you want that earthquake strengthening previously, and we have policy in relation to that. That's why we've got the earthquake strengthening in where we've got it at the moment for the buildings that we've shown to do for this community. So there are those financial benefits in there, but I absolutely hear what you're saying. But I guess from our perspective, we're saying from the information that we have, we believe that we need to have this conversation with the community.
Like I said, so if this goes out to the community,
Yes.
and they say no, this, no, that, or yes, this, it's just the decision won't be that you're going to divest these and not divest these. Well, it'll come back to the community and you'll come back to us.
No, come back to council then.
Come back to council, so and it'll come back and it'll say, we're going to keep Ranford Town Hall. And the community say, we'll get rid of the rest.
And that may well be the outcome, but yes, from a process point of view, you're absolutely correct. Of the community has their say. Hearings, submissions, that will get digested by council to say, okay, the community will come out really strongly in relation to Ranford Hall for argument's sake. We take on board the comments that have been made. Actually, we're going to retain that one. The rest there seems to be,
and all the central, like Beck's Call will come up in Cromwell buildings and libraries. It's a whole district.
Yeah.
So if we recommend this, it'll go to public consultation, and it goes to council.
Yes.
It won't come back to this table.
Yeah, it won't come back to this table. That's not bad. Bad thing. But they'll listen to what we say, and they'll listen to what the community say. When would the decision be made? Would it be made LTP for next?
No, so the decision will be made by 30 June of 2025.
Yeah.
Because the LTP will start 1st of July 2025. Yes. Yeah. And so then let's say that all of these buildings that we're proposing to be considered for divestment are still in the divestment box, so to speak. Then the team have got a process of looking at that won't be a 5-minute job either. That will take a period of time in relation to, some will be easier than others and we'll just need to rationalise what that looks like, not just for the Maniototo, but for Vincent as well. That has a similar challenging conversation that we're having here today, and others not so much basically, but Vincent has got equally a number of buildings like so.
And just to the chair, so as a board, you'll also have the opportunity to feed into that LTP consultation. So if you have community sentiment in that, as well as the members of the community being able to make a submission to it, the board can make a submission to that as well, which will be considered by council.
The risk we have here is not having more in B for the community, so we don't want that. Yeah. So getting that up to B. And that's my risk, is because all of a sudden, and the staff, you know, and you look at that, the issue that I have, the service centre, it's a council building that's used for this.
You two won't actually say which ones you want to move to B.
Yeah, Centennial Milk Bar, General Store.
So you got the Centennial Milk Bar here in Ranford.
Yeah.
You got the
Nathan General Store.
Nathan
They
General.
make you money, don't they? Like,
And it is a part of the history of the Naismith match. And they can be dropped off at any other time in the future. They can't be put back on. This is the risk.
Oh, well done.
And to be fair, if you're trying to look at saving, $500,000 is only 1% of the rates.
1%.
Yeah, but the three waters is 20% of our rates. So We're subsidising other industries of government and council by divesting our assets that have been built by the community. That's the my conclusion. The other one here. And then I go Naseby Hall and Ranfurly Hall.
So the ones that are highlighted, is that what you're saying?
And the bottom of those two
Yeah,
that we've
those
just
two,
talked about.
Yeah. So I agree with Stu on that those,
They're on there. And as we will.
If your recommendation for Peter Rose to demolish it was on the list at all.
Again, because we need to talk to community, need to have a say. And to be fair, we've been out talking to the Petty Road community. They do understand the structural issues around Petty Road.
So if the structure of the Peter Rose Hall come out, it comes off this budget line, doesn't it? If it demolished, we cost of demolishing, I guess.
The cost of demolishing, and we know the cost, we've got a cost to demolish the Cherry Hill Hall, and it's about 120,000.
But it's been divested.
Terry. Yes, but we had to get an option of, at the moment it's going out for sale, but we also had to get a cost of what it would be to demolish, so.
Take me through that again. So the option to sell a Cherry Hill Hall.
Oh, not a Cherry Hill,
Yeah.
Omacow Hall, sorry.
That's been demolished.
Omacow, no, it's still standing.
Mhm.
At the
It's going to
moment,
be though.
no, at the moment it's going out to market. It's being marketed for
It's been
sale.
marketed for sale.
If no one wanted to buy it,
I thought it was a fun deal that was going to be pulled down.
no.
There you go.
That's why it'll be pulled down, so we got a pricing of what it's going to cost to demolish.
Yeah.
So looking at that cost and not Petty Rower, it will be similar.
Yeah.
So, yeah, about the same era. And
So again, if that's your recommendation to council, then what we will do in the report is that we will outline what staff's recommendation is. And so we might have said, rather than say, recommend to consider the divestment of the Ranfurly Hall, and that will be staff's recommendation, and then it will have the community board's recommendation underneath to retain.
And I guess the issue in correspondence on the document is that the date of the 2054. Because if we're going to divest something in 30 years' time, A, for raising funds, and B, we need to know what those rules are. And they need the communities, if they get them divested, they need to know that in 30 years' time they're coming up for a hiding, or otherwise they'll walk away and demolish the site.
Absolutely, absolutely. Let's not forget of with this government, we don't know what they're only going to start that review of the earthquake strengthening legislation and methodology next year. That will take them a good 6-12 months easily to work through what that looks like. That may mean that there are more buildings that require more earthquake strengthening. That might mean that the timeframes are short. We just don't know in relation to that. All I know is that at the moment they've proposed a 4-year extension to give time for consideration of that legislation. But that hasn't been ratified at the moment.
And that's where I've got the problem, is the legislation doesn't match with the timeline we're doing it. And Maniototo hasn't got a spatial plan to give us the foresight that we're looking 30 years, 40 years for. That's the issue.
Right.
You sit around the council table, no, I've got lots of issues.
So do we want to move this where we've changed a few? You want to move this recommendation, Stu, that
Well,
we'll move from one to the other?
No, probably should have a discussion on each one. The Wallace Memorial Rooms, but you're the one who suggested those.
Yeah, well,
But it's easier to take them back off there than put them on later when it comes to council.
Yep, that's fine.
Yeah, no, if you want to do that, shift it up. And did I say Penton Library? Put it out there too, because it's actually the radio station. Well, it's so divested, leave it there. Yeah, leave it there. It suits there.
60. Ever seen the would have been more. It's going to stay there.
With the service centre, if we choose to ship the service centre or close it completely, as it's got records in the storage, what's stopping it because not people there to stay in storage? If you were going to make wholesale changes and you shut the facilities down in Ranfurly, you paid your rates at the library or another building, and this building is obsolete. Don't tell me that council might use it for something else. If it's earthquake proven, it has to get demolished if it's not up to standard. So if it gets divested, basically it gets divested into a pile of rubbish. There's no community's going to buy it. So if you're going to divest the service sector, that means it shuts, correct? Well, it should.
Highly likely, and then it's considerations to what happens with this. Is it bolting it and looking at building something else? What does that look like?
So who makes that decision? Council.
And not the council.
But someone could buy it, knock it down and build something their own.
100%. Yeah.
So if that be the case,
Then want to build flats or something like that.
but if that be the case, why don't we retain that and do it ourselves if we're going to build flats? So why do we? The point is, once you lose the community service, to me, I would knock it down and then build a series of flats up through here. But once we divest it, we've lost the ability to do that. Correct?
You might divest it to yourself, you develop it yourself,
To the community board.
well, to council might change the use of it, demolish it.
So why are we putting it up for this discussion? I guess I'm saying. So the council, why don't you keep it now?
Because what we're saying is that we're not going to use it as a service centre. So we're recognising the community, we're getting rid of that facility. Yeah, if the community is supportive of that, okay. Now we know we're not going to use it as a service centre. What else do we want to do with that? What are our options?
So that'll come to us in that debate at council.
As council, but that will be the consideration. And we know that we've had some anecdotal conversations in relation to that, which is why I say.
Yeah. No, because once if you divested it and went down the road and went to someone else, you've lost the advantage you might have of having it. So far down the road on for.
Next street.
Well, they are big issues because it's across the town.
Absolutely.
They are community issues.
Particularly when we're looking at buildings like this, there's a lot of history, a lot of emotion that's tied up in the buildings as well. There are really difficult conversations, but as a council, as you will full well know, and as a community board, you will know, there are also really difficult times in relation to the financial constraints of it.
Yeah, and that's the worrying part from my camp is we've got so much being fired at us in this community now that it seems like it's coming under darkness, and we've got submissions on the solar farm and people are emotionally high to cut buildings in there as well. But that's what our job is. We get that every council meeting we go to. So anyone else add anything else to those? Vicky?
Can I make a comment when appropriate?
Oh, yep. Yep, Peter, how are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Okay, so I've listened to this debate. I've just got a couple of things to add. Since I've been here, this council has always said we have to consider what we're doing with the halls. Hence, this paper is coming to you as the start of that discussion. Decisions made today are not definitive and are not final, but we can't keep kicking this can down the road, and hence it's coming up in this LTP. But the amendments you make are absolutely appropriate, and the other community boards have done the same. And as Lee has pointed out, we will take that to council. We will show them what the community board has said. We will pass on our recommendations, and then council will consider that. Now, the point about divestment, as the team have said, it's going to cover a range of options, and that will come back to us in the consultation document as well, because we'll be pretty open-ended about those buildings that we may choose to divest. Community members may tell us where they think that divestment should occur. The Ranfurly Service Centre is a classic, isn't it? Because we could divest that building because we're not going to store anything there because it doesn't serve that purpose because it leaks like a sieve. But the land could be pretty valuable for us, and elderly pension housing is pretty good for us as well. So those options won't even be made in the LTP because the divestment will get what the community tell us. We'll take that forward into papers into the LTP. But I suspect there's going to be quite a bit of work we'll be doing in the first 2 years of this LTP to really explore what does divestment look like. And as only council can divest itself of these assets, it will come back as a decision for council. Because the community boards, where it falls in your area, we will also have to bring that back to the community boards again. So this is going to take us some time to work through this. So you will have plenty of options to feed back into the process, as well the community, which will then help inform us as to where things fall in the LTP and then what work we carry on into the next 2 years. But the point is, when you look at it collectively across our halls and community facilities, we spend a lot of money, and can we rationalise that? That's the question, and it's worth answering. If the answer is keep them all, then keep them all. But keeping them all comes at a significant cost to the ratepayer. There you go. That's my bit for this conversation.
Thank you, Peter. You,
That's
what we've done up there, you happy if we recommend it at that stage, Becky?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we've got, let's just go, so we've added Naseby General Store, Central Milk Bar, Naseby Hall, Granby Hall, and the Wallace Memorial Rooms we're taking them from C to B. Is that correct? Yeah. Good. Right?
Oh, yeah,
That's right.
It's the start of the process.
Yes, that's what I mean. We're starting the process and we're going to make sure that we recommend what we want to see there. Yeah. Keep it going. Right? So does someone want to move that?
I'll move that. I was trying to get fried. Won't go anywhere in the town.
You remove that adoption of the report with the 5 buildings that we've added to it. Right? You know, we all know what they are. Have a second, please. Becky, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried, thank you. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Lee.
Stu, for all your in-depth stuff. So, not picking at you in any way, it's like to make sure we all know what to talk about. You brought up some very valid comments about all of it.
Oh, and we've got a lot coming down the train lines at council with all this in every community, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
Not easy.
Right.
Is it, Lee?
Ella.
No, it's not true.
I used to look young and vibrant, like old son over there.
Oh, nice.
I got told off to root you the other day. Pretty good.
Finally.
I wasn't even rude. How are you?
Yeah, it's nice and peaceful and quite late in this round, so good to see you. Do you need a minute to get the slides up or do you want me to jump in? While Sarah's looking, there's not much on the first 2 slides. So I'm here today to talk to you about our customer resolutions work. And really what I'm wanting is your feedback before it goes to council, because this is a piece of work that does limit the kinds and types of contact a customer can have with council. And there's quite obviously an impact on elected members if we start doing that. So the outcome or the reason we're here, I'm up to slide 2, Sarah, is just to familiarise you with some terms, and that is customer resolutions, unreasonable complainant conduct, and managed customers, and also to talk a bit about the work that we're doing to underpin this and where it goes. So on the complaints policy, really the headlines there are, we have one, it's in draft form, it will be approved over the next couple of months, and all it's doing is articulating the way we already do things. It's the standard 3-step model where we assume most complaints can be resolved face-to-face by frontline staff in the moment. There's an escalation to a manager and there's an escalation above that. And then just sitting over to the left of that is a complaint that sits across multiple departments. And so on slide 4, I've drawn up for you, or I've copied a complaints model from the Kapiti District Council, and what the arrows are supposed to represent here is the number of complaints that would fall there. So as you can see in the foundation, that's where most of the work happens. And then as we step up through those levels of complaints, we expect there to be less and less people. The Ombudsman sits at the top because they have oversight of any public sector agency on behalf of the public. And then the people we're talking about is that really narrow arrow to the left marked UCC, and we expect it to be quite a minority. So what that UCC stands for, on slide 5, is unreasonable complainant conduct. And that's any conduct by a person that, because of its nature or frequency, raises substantial health, safety or resource issues for the council. So what we're talking about here is customers whose behaviour is so unreasonable that it either has an impact on staff wellbeing or on the way we do our roles, and it's becoming really, really expensive to keep dealing with the same issue. I've popped in on slide 6 some of those negative impacts of unreasonable conduct that I've pulled directly from the Ombudsman, but really it is summarised as that, is sometimes this behaviour has that impact and that's not good for council, for staff or the people themselves. So there's some processes we can put in place to help us deal with that have come directly from the Ombudsman. And the point of them is to keep as much contact open with someone who's being unreasonable as we can. So it can never be used punitively. It always has to be used to say that your behaviour is unreasonable, so we've acted like this, but we've kept these other channels open to you. So that unreasonable conduct is split into the 5 categories within the policy. That's unreasonable persistence, which is really when somebody's already had their question asked and answered, they continue to stay in contact on the same piece. Unreasonable demands, that's asking for something that we just can't do. Unreasonable lack of cooperation, unreasonable arguments, and unreasonable behaviours. And all of the solutions are drawn directly to the behaviour. Slides 8 and 9 is the principles that sit there. I guess the main summary of those that you need to know is its goal is to be equitable and fair and improve efficiency and keep contact open. So if somebody is being unreasonably persistent about one issue, such as trees, they still
say like the group in the 5 mile would be a classic example, would they not? Parking, sorry. Or they would trigger some of these criteria, wouldn't they?
Some of that behaviour may, but I don't want to individualise it because then I risk my whole policy. So in a wider answer to your question, there are behaviour that comes out in those types of issues that would be considered unreasonably persistent. And we would then say, this question is asked and answered here, but if your sewer overflows, you can still contact us. So it's not about stopping them contacting council like a trespass procedure does, which is our only tool. It's about creating avenues for these other issues to keep these ones on track. All the way to 11, so we've jumped around a lot. So we've got a process we have to follow. That's the Ombudsman's process. So we've basically got to identify the warning signs, consider some criteria, give people notice and opportunities to change their behaviour, and have regular review periods. So if someone's behaviour has changed, they have the ability to increase their contact with council again. Slide 12 is just to let you all know that if you have contact from these members in a way that impacts you, we have support for you as well. And we are starting to see an increase in that behaviour, so it is possible into the future that you may. That's Louise Fleck, our Manager of People and Culture. There's the CEO, the Mayor, David Scoons over there, and we can extend the Employee Assistance Program as well. And then finally, slide 13, I've just put up there the communication level of understanding, so you can sort of see where we're at. We're starting with the community boards to make sure we have all your feedback from the start. We'll go to council and then we'll continue to roll it out across the team. We will also be putting out some notices to the community just to let them know.
Is there any communities that are more at risk than others?
David? I would say so.
And of them, a majority about trees?
To answer your question more, I've used this model before in 2 other councils I've been in, and trees are an emotive issue, but we tend to find they're the ones we don't see as much, or members are familiar with, but they're repeated emails at 1 AM in the morning that are 30 pages long. It gives us the ability to say we filed this away without reading it.
Yeah. Cool.
You could write 30 pages.
It's surprised.
Really?
Yeah.
And that document is in the meeting.
It's just a report, isn't it?
Yeah.
We'll move and receive the report. But it actually is real. Staff get grief, elected members get grief, especially when you have so many things coming down the channel. The average person in public doesn't see the stuff that goes on at this level. And then some, like submissions or a solar farm or walls or bridges and roads, you do get a fair bit of it.
Right, Stu's moved that we accept the report. And the seconder, please.
Yeah.
Becky, all those in favour? Aye, against? Very, thank you. Thank you very much, Alex. Right, financial report.
Hello.
G'day.
Hi. Sorry I couldn't join you today. Just time pressures here at work. But I do have the September financial report for you. So for the first 3 months, we had an operating favourable variance of $124,000 against the revised budgets. Revenue is sitting alongside our budgets with a favourable variance of $111,000. And this has been driven by a little bit of the surplus of internal interest revenue received and user fees and other income being slightly higher than budget. Expenditure has a favourable variance of $113,000. You have staff, contracts, fuel and energy and other costs that are favourable variances. The staff costs is mainly just due to the timing of the Ranfurly pool being open, as it's seasonal. With overspends including rates expense and professional fees. The rates expense variance will remain for the rest of the year, and as at 30 September we had yet to receive the Otago Regional Council rates, and these will be recognised in the next financial report. Some of the rates expense is actually offset by other income for rentals and hires that we actually charge that to as well. So there is a wee bit of an offset there. Professional fees is higher than budget, and this is due to legal opinions for the earthquake-prone community facility buildings that you've just been discussing earlier today. Capital expenditure has a favourable variance of $246,000, with only 1% of the capital expenditure budget being spent year to date. At the time of writing this report, the capital works programs were being prepared and will hopefully be started or starting in the new calendar year. Reserve funds at present only show you the 30 June 2024 numbers. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to give you the updated estimates for this financial year, so we will be aiming to do that in the next meeting or the next financial report. So we finished the year with $1.57 million in surplus. However, it is still just important to remember that there are deficits sitting in the Maniototo Arts Centre, the Community Halls Maniototo, other reserves and the general reserves Maniototo. Are there any questions?
Stu? All right, Becky? Everything looks pretty straightforward.
The Naseby Dam Reserve, as Janice was saying, has it always been there?
It has always been there, and it does get utilised for some of the capital program.
The concrete work. So that's an endowment. That's an endowment money, though, is it? Or so is that what it is?
That's what it is my understanding. Janice would be able to confirm that.
So it's in credit by $8,000, correct? No.
No, so it's in credit by $92,000.
$92,000, yeah.
And it's accumulating a bit of depreciation and interest revenue on that account.
Cool. Yeah, we just concreted the last bit, haven't we?
Yeah. I'll move the report.
Accepted. The seconder, please. Becky, all those in favour? Aye. Against? Oh, thank you. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you.
So the Mayor's report has been circulated by email. We just need someone to accept that, please. Becky, seconder. Stu, all in favour? Right, cheers. The other day I met with Duncan from council, what's his name, McGuinness, and we had a look at the sewer ponds in Naseby where the overflow occurred. So we went round the back, checked out the Hogburn Gully, where the water flowed over the road from the side, the ice rink down through there, and a good wander down through there. So they're looking at trying to mediate it if we get a large flow again. But it's culverts, it's fixing up the swale, stuff like that we're going to look at. Went up to Ballarat Ave with some water been coming out of the road, and I think they're going to pass it on to Roading.
Was a investment.
Yeah. As you see, there's water always coming out of the road. There's a water line there, but they haven't been able to find one with the leak detection guys. I went down to the rugby grounds here and looked at the grills, top side of Perry Street, the one over at the skate park, and we went down to the bottom to have a look where the water went out into Great Southern. They looked down through there. They're looking at cleaning out a few bits and pieces and checking out that pipe. And the grills, because the grills just blocked very quickly. I met with Gordon up at the Naseby Cemetery. Had a look at the trees. I thought it was a very good job done. It's good to see loggers that care and try to leave a tidy job when they finish. Because we're down at the rugby club ones as well, and the same thing. I thought they did a really good job. Unfortunately, trees make a mess when they get old. There's something going on. We're getting them chipped next year.
Yeah, we're getting them before the show.
Before the show, and they'll just be chipped onto the old stumps.
Yeah.
Then we can look at replanting in the next few years. Yeah. So that'll be something for community board members to look at and get involved in and just see what's going on. I was at the solar farm meeting on Monday night. Stu, you're going to talk about it, aren't you? You can talk about that. It was very well attended. There's about 100 to 50 people there. The guy spoke very well, brought up some subjects that other people haven't thought of, some facts and figures. And so, Gordon, we've been talked about the hedge and that at the Art Deco and about the streetscaping that people want to do. Do you want to have a quick yarn about that and just say what's going on about making sure that the people that are doing it have a plan? And
yeah, so we've talked to the, as we said last meeting, we talked to the Art Deco group who didn't want the hedge removed and wanted to keep on that, so that was passed on to the other group. And the other group still wanted to go ahead with doing replanting, removing stuff that I've asked them. Firstly, we need a safety plan, and we need a plan of what they want to do so we know what they're doing, because they have removed a few things that haven't been aware of and not given to the community notice. So we just want to know so everybody knows what's going on. So we need a bit of for one of the sort of a landscape plan.
Yep.
And we're happy to work with them and do that stuff, because we, as you know, we just start before last, planning something out. Yeah.
right, thank you. And the school turf, Saskia, Stu, that was come on to the money for that we would allocate has come on to general rates. Can you just, so Becky probably doesn't know exactly what's happened, do you?
Yes. So we just we took through a conversation to council, and what council really the request was for 25% district grant, and the rest could be covered by the Maniototo board. And councils were like, well, actually, hang on, sports and recreation is now fully district funded, so it doesn't make sense for the Maniototo community to be sucking up all the money. So council's direction was that the grant should be district funded. So obviously there's been an impact for the Maniototo board ratepayers. So next that will be is in consideration next Wednesday as to first sort of gate bearers to get it into the consultation document, and councils will be given direction on that. and then there is an option currently for it not to be district funded within the payment. Of course, councils could change their mind next Wednesday, but that's where it currently is at. Similarly, there's another 2 grant that's board. It's the same thing, following the same logic. There is now district funded, so it didn't make sense for the business board paying for it. So it's in there.
Good. So would that go into the next LTP
Yes.
planning? And so if this is a year away before they even get going, it would be in a year's time we can go to them and say,
Assuming council approves it to go to the consultation document, which this came on Wednesday's given direction, council can still pull it out on the 29th of January. That's kind of D-Day for council. They're going to confirm the consultation document. Or go through that process. There's always tweaks during the process. And then in March, I will go back up to council for consultation. So assuming that it stays in through those processes, we'll go back to the conversation.
thank you very much, Saskia. And that's my report. I'll just like someone move that report be accepted, please.
Yes.
Becky, second it, Stu, all those in favour? Aye, against, everything. Members' reports. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. I'll be short and sweet.
So will
Oh, really? I don't have too much. We had the late night shopping down the main street of Ranfurly last Friday night. It was a great night. Heaps of people down the street. The businesses seemed to be doing quite well. Everyone was in good spirits. So that was really good and positive to see. The main street looked great. The kids were involved with the schools. There were stalls outside. It was pretty cool. Obviously, you've touched on the trees and cemetery and that. I've had a bit of feedback. The first time I've had feedback given and then negative. So it was kind of,
That one.
that one.
Right.
Yeah, that one's good. Yeah, but yes, questions. But it's good. It's part of the job, right?
Yep.
I was talking about that. Solar farm. Stu's obviously going to talk about that, but that is a hot topic of the area at the moment. So that's navigating through that. It's really interesting hearing people's opinions, and everyone's got their right to their opinion. So it's interesting.
It will be.
It will be.
And when you're talking, I'm just reminded that they can make a submission.
Oh yeah, and it's great. So there's a lady who's put her hand up to do that for people. So that's really cool as well. But
yeah,
I don't know.
But if they don't make a submission,
Yeah,
it won't be the same.
that's what I tell them. Go online. Go online. Yeah, I don't know. This community seems to be buzzing along, getting ready for a busy summer, hopefully. Obviously, the film crew are making things quite busy as well. So that's just going to ramp up come January. Hopefully, we get lots of families, and the pool's going well. So that's awesome. Good job. Lots of staff. Lots and lots of stuff.
Yeah, good team there.
Great team leader. So keep her on.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So no, just a real good positive vibe. Ready for Christmas now. Ready for holiday. And it's just been.
Right, thank you, Becky.
Yeah.
Right, I'll be as quick as Becky.
No, you won't.
Trees have been touched. I think they've done a really good job doing it. The contract is really good. It's been touched on, and people get emotional. One old guy rang me up or emailed me and rang him back. He's, you seem to be all over it, good as gold. So he was happy. Solar farm, I think it has the potential to really break this community up if people don't understand it. So I think our comms team need to make sure that it's easy to people to understand the process, or even a mock submission part in the target ad time or something, because it only needs to be into the system and saying I am all for the solar farm, but I want to make sure there's no this, or I'm against the solar farm because of sunlight reflection or whatever. So even if we have somehow we can get to the right part to show 2 or 3 mock ones where I'm against the pool being painted purple or something, so just because people feel I think they feel it's a real big issue. So I think that's something that's going to be really, really contentious. The presentation the other night was top class. There's no pushing it down one way or the other. And Tamer and I got a wee bit of heat because of the time it took from the submission being launched to the submissions, right after Christmas. So there's a bit of that the council are letting the community down, which is not the case as a process. So maybe a wee bit of comms about that would be a good thing to let people know that, you know, as far as I said at the meeting, stood up to the meeting, the council have been well aware of these issues for a long time. We've had discussions at all levels at council. So I think they probably thought we haven't, but I think it just motivates the community, but we can deal with that. Went to the prize giving in the town hall with Tamar, and it was an amazing prize giving. And the talent in the school were there, and the saddest part and the most amazingest part of resilience was the head girl who got ducks, and her mother passed away of cancer in the middle of this year, and continued on her academic career to get the ducks and going on to do health science in Dunedin and such adversity. And one thing that the principal said in her speech was how amazing this community is and coming from other schools. And, you know, going back to the likes of the issues we're facing now in halls and solar farms in the school and that, it's a fantastic community. So everyone keeps it. But it was a really good prize given, and some of the talent is phenomenal. Workshop yesterday, my computer kept going in and out, the battery wouldn't charge up, but yeah, there's a lot coming down the line about pricing, about water. Water's going to be a really big ticket item for us, and I'm still not sure we all understand as councillors how the new CCO or CCE, whatever it is, going to be, whether we join other regions. And I just worries me that Dunedin are looking at a unitary council at the moment. They're meeting yesterday, today. I don't know how it went. But when I see managers leaving Timaru to be running the hospital in Dunedin, and I see us joining Waitaki, Balclutha, Queenstown, and maybe a West Coast place for water, it just smells and looks like 30 years out that we're going to be one unitary body, and south of Timaru is going to be one place and north of Christchurch is the other. So a lot of these things, there's a lot of volunteer walking into that, and I just don't know how the water thing's going to end up. All I know is water supplies are going to get a lot more expensive than what they are now. And it's going to put a lot of pressure on us as community boards and councils, because you see some of the numbers are absolutely scary. But what does worry me at council and its staff is that we are putting them on communities where the issues are districtised. If it's going to cost 300 million to do the water in Central Target, it's cost 300 million whether in Patiroa or whether in Cromwell. And what we're putting as figures, a bit like halls, this is what it's costing the ratepayer, this is what's costing your community. It's not costing our community, it is costing council. So when some of those figures we're seeing come out, there's going to be some real shocks. And I don't know how you make that better, because it's transparency that we're seeing. Wind, it's been a phenomenal lot of wind in the last fortnight. It's changed the mood of agriculture, but it's absolutely increased our fire risk. And as we speak, the fire trucks are way out to a fire now, and we look what's happening in Canterbury. I think it's a real dangerous precedent for us at the moment, what's happening to fire. And the positive of that, we've just got our new fire truck in Ramfleet. And once again, you know, the community raised $100,000 in the community to buy a truck with some help and some fantastic sponsors within the community and out with the Trust, Fulton Hogan, a few of those have been really good. One of the biggest risks that came out in the solar farm was fire, and batteries on fire and toxicity. So, you know, a concern would be in that process, you'd hope that in some form in their resource consent application or anything like that, fire mitigation is massive, because it's our volunteers that are go out in the middle of the afternoon to deal with a $1 billion corporate event if it does happen. So, you know, I think that's something that was the biggest thing that came out of the risk of fire and batteries. Christmas street party was awesome. Went down there at 5 o'clock. It was really good. It was bubbling and lots going on, and there was a lot of people that I haven't seen in the community bounce around, lots of kids. So it was really cool. It was really well done. So the business group that are there and the people who helped do it have done a really good job, and hope to do it. And the final thing is, and we've just had a Christmas party the other day. It was pretty good, but I will tell you now, there's an enormous amount of pressure on elected members, and sometimes they're getting pretty fragile. And some of them have just got normal family lives like everyone else, you and me and everyone else, but we are getting a lot of heat and it's tough times. So, you know, I've had a good friend on the other side of just snapping, you know, because of pressure we're under, and there's a lot of workshops and a lot of council time has been taken up, and you do feel the pressure. Other than that, it's our last one here before Christmas. I wish everyone a very Merry Christmas and the staff. It's not been easy to do a wonderful job, and I wish you and all your families a really Merry Christmas. And we've got a meeting in Cromwell. I don't know where we're going to go to Cromwell. It's a long way to go. Comfortable around centre. And I think what you're talking this Tamer wants to have a council meeting down here in the Maniototo too, doesn't she, in time? So it's great. They had one at Omakau the other day, didn't they? So it's good that they're getting about. And I think on the record too, Tamer's done an exceptionally good job to go into mayor in the 3 weeks she's had it, and she's walked in some massive ticket items. So I wish her all the best, and she's been really well received, and given the wee girl the other day prize giving, and you know, she did a fabulous job at those sort of things that fit in really well. So that's me, and yeah.
Thank you, Stu. Can someone move those members' reports, please?
Second one.
You, Stu, Duncan, second. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Status reports, I presume everyone's read them?
Yep.
Oh, well done. Nothing coming out of them? Don't change it. Read there's a report there from Arts Centre. Nothing much in it. Someone move that report be accepted, please.
Yep.
Second, Stu Duncan. In favour?
Just one other thing, I put in my members report, I've just joined the committee of Apatari Y as a catchment group and trying to get people there because a lot of these issues of irrigation and that. So we're looking for new members to be members of the Apatari Y catchment group. It's about the whole Maniototo Sticks Basin and all that. Something else I joined.
Thank you, Stu. The date of the next meeting will be February 2025. Right, thank everyone for their attendance today, members and staff. Once again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. We'll see you next year. Thank you very much.
I'm going to workshop, haven't you?
Yeah.